Hey, just want to welcome everybody. Join us for this weekly adventure that we are on each week at the Lead Today community. We have been talking about going to the next level. And so I've been inviting people that are in our community, whether they be ambassadors, donors, or clients. And just before we get started, before I introduce Chrissy, I'm learning to over communicate. As a leader, one of my weaknesses is that I had a lot of stuff in my head, but I didn't always communicate it. So I'm trying to adjust that and over communicate, even though it feels like you've heard me say this a million times before. So Lead Today, the Lead Today community, it is a nonprofit Christian organization. We are a network of friends and acquaintances. That's one way I describe it, supporting one another and our communities by shaping and infusing leadership character and competencies into our roles and our organizations. And we definitely have a bias towards serving the next generation of leaders. Many of our services that we offer, we charge little or nothing. And a lot of our services, whether it be consulting, coaching groups, virtual mini courses, which we provide, and other gatherings, are aimed at a type of person who can't stop, won't stop getting better. They want to get better. And I think I'm a person like that. I could just put it in cruise control in my life. I'm 61 years old now, but I'm not going to do that. I think I'm going to go as long as I can go. And finally, I will say we believe that good people and good leaders grow within a healthy community striving for excellence. This work is worthy of your time and your effort and your financial support because it benefits homes, churches, workplaces, and communities. So that's my little spiel. Chrissy, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Chrissy Lefler is the Director of Operations for Tipping Point in the Denver area. Chrissy, tell us a little bit about, first of all, what Tipping Point does.
Sure. Tipping Point is a Native American 8A disadvantaged, service-disabled, veteran-owned small business that is focused on creating experiences. So we do that through 3 divisions primarily. We have Tipping Point Solutions, which is a division of the company that's focused on training needs and gap analysis, e-learning, training development, and simulation-based training solutions. We also have a media and entertainment division. So that group focuses on cinematic production, virtual and green screen production, documentary style videos, animation, motion graphics, deep skill set there. And then we've newly launched an events and meetings division of the company. So we produce live, virtual, and hybrid events and do full service design, planning, marketing, production, everything that's associated with an event, that division of the company handles. So creating experiences. We started out as a training company and have since branched and grown into 3 separate divisions.
Wow. Just to put in a plug for Tipping Point, both you and the owner, Rick, have been gracious enough to allow Lead Today to do some recording. You've done some recording for us and some editing, and I hope you will in the future as we're able to get out into Denver and do that. And it was a joy also emceeing for you. I guess that would be 2 years ago. Was that 2 years ago? Did we skip 2020? Yeah, we had to skip 2020. So that was in 2019 for a PM project management conference there down at downtown Denver. Well, thank you for that. And it really is an interesting business. Obviously, in some ways, it's not that unusual, but in other ways, it's very niche with your target group. Okay, well, thank you for that. Now, Chris, I'm going to put you on the hot seat. So, we drive certain ideas through, we're a faith-based organization. And I think a lot of people sometimes think that that's soft. We're not soft. We're an organization that believes that leaders need to live at the next level and they should never be satisfied. So I don't know how you want to answer this. I'm going to give you a lot of freedom in answering this, but the question that I have been asking the community now going on a month, and we're going to extend it to a couple months, is as a leader, you're at a place in your life, or the company's at a place in its life, and you know that you have reached a plateau. You know that you got to get to the next level. Whether it's wholly discontent with yourself personally, or the organization is flattening out and you're beginning to, take that dive that everybody's afraid of, that can happen in every organization, and usually does. Well, always does, sooner or later. So my question is something like, how do you know when you're plateauing? How do you identify the next level? How do you get to the next level? Are you already doing that? Are there goals that you're looking at? And just talk to me a little bit about that, because we have a lot of leaders, many of them younger leaders, who are in new positions, and they're trying to figure all of this out.
Sure. Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think sometimes getting to the next level is about learning to take risks. As you know, Jim, I didn't sort of come up in a very traditional path. My degree was earned from the School of Hard Knocks. And so I learned a lot in that process. But what I'll say is that early in my career, I often lacked the confidence to take risks. So somewhere along the line, I really embraced the mantra, fake it till you make it, right? We've all heard that. And truly, as I began to use that as my confidence builder, I actually just legitimately started to believe that I could pretty much do anything. So it's not just that I learned to channel my inner rock star. I did learn to do that, but I stopped being afraid of failure, because I realized that is where I learned the most. And that failure usually propelled me farther than I realized I needed to go to begin with. So that was a good thing. But I think most importantly, learning to get to the next level, or getting to the next level, is about building an empowering team. So once I embraced the importance of that and fully understood that I was always going to be able to accomplish more with a team than I ever could individually, that makes risk taking easier. Having said that, I do think that at this stage in my career, I can very easily state, yeah, we got that, no problem. And believe in my team that we can get to where we're going. But I often underestimate the time involved it takes to lead a larger team. I've always been a planner, and staying a step or two ahead of the team is where I have sort of learned to advance. But for where I'm at right now, I think one of the challenges is a step or two ahead of a large team isn't going to lead to success. I need to be much farther out than the team is, and that's uncomfortable again, right? And it forces me to consider, what does next level look like when we're not there yet? And so I have to consider that uncharted territory.
Wow, you just laid, there's no way we're going to do this in 10 minutes, as if anyone expected us to. But you've just laid out, a lot of things. Yes, I'm going to, first of all, connect with, as I know, I remember when you were driven to go back to school, which is not a bad thing, but, I was kind of questioning why you were doing that. And please, those of you who will are listening now or will listen later on one of our other platforms, I am in no way putting down formal education. But because you were a member of my leadership team at one point back in the day, and one thing that, if I had to write an evaluation of your leadership, one thing I would say is that you did an incredible job at wooing people to the idea and working with them to execute the idea. You were the epitome of what our business model was in a church, which was equipping people to find their purpose and to serve with their purpose. And in some ways, nonprofit work, of course, I'm going to get some hate mail for this, but since I've done both, neither is easy. But nonprofit work has another level of difficulty because you accomplish the majority of your mission through volunteers and through donors, not through a specific service that you're paid for. So I would say that I would say working with the team is something that I would go check. That's what Chrissy does. And I would also say that, and agree with you, because in my study of temperament, there is no human temperament that covers all the bases. There is no human temperament that is complete. That's why at Lead Today, we use this various of assessment tools and whatnot to help put teams together. And I like all that. But here's my question for you, because you also said something. I mean, everything you said was really good. The risk thing, the lack of confidence and insecurity. Thank you for sharing that, because, a lot of people won't let that come out, of their mouth. And that's insecure right there. When I'm not able to say, hey, this is what I'm afraid of, this is what scares me, this is what I'm wondering about, that is really the first step to authentic growth, when you can communicate. Now, granted, you got to be in a safe place where you can do that, but excellent. So first of all, those of you who listen to this or are listening to this, write that down. One thing I want you to do is you need to find people that you feel safe with, that you trust, and you can voice your concerns, your insecurities, your fears. All right, but here's my question.
Okay.
You identified personally the next area for you, the next level. Mm-hmm. And the word that I'm using for that is strategic. Because the definition of strategy is that you're able to go out far enough, as you said, far enough to where you can help people not just see the future as a visionary would share the future, but vision is really fuzzy if we can't work back and also show everybody the steps that it will take to get there. So let's say that you're not naturally gifted in strategy. Let me jump the gun here, because I want to fill this question out really good for you. I'm a strategist. I live there, but here's the problem. Just because I write a good strategy doesn't mean we execute it. There's got to be people who execute it. I can write some of the best plans, but somebody's got to do it. So for me, I'm not saying that all my strategies are right on bullseye,
right?
But what you're talking about is different than if I had to answer the same question I asked you today. What's my next level? It wouldn't be strategy, but it'd be something about making that strategy work. Mm-hmm. So you said you got to get out farther than your team. And you've also admitted, what does that look like?
Great.
So how are you going to do that? If you don't know what it looks like, Chrissy, how are you going to do it?
I'm glad you asked. Let me tell you. kidding.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, if you say you live in the place of strategy, I live in the place of executing, right?
Yeah.
I was going to say I live in the place of execution, but that sounds very bad. I execute is what I do. I rally a team to execute. But even executing with a large, diverse, dispersed team becomes a challenge. I mean,
Yeah.
the strategy and the mission is set. I'm very mission focused, but now I have to get strategic in terms of how to execute. So I think for me, it means learning to focus more on like major muscle movements instead of the finite processes and steps, which is where I live and thrive. It's why I'm so passionate about project management and backwards planning and work breakdown structures and all of those things that I can go very deep in the weeds, love schedules, love planning, but I can't live in that place anymore. And the reason that's a challenge is because as my responsibility grows, at the end of the day, all of those details ultimately they do come down to me. So it really is the leading through others. It's not just inspiring others. I appreciate your comments about me wooing others. I do feel like I build loyalty because I communicate value. But I think the challenge that I face is I learn to let go of details, and then I'll get some communication and I find out, no, we didn't do it that way, or, we're no longer doing it like that. And I'm like, wait a second, we've always done it like that. It worked great before. Now you have this issue and problem. So I think I need to let go, but I still need to do a better job of sort of communicating what are the fence posts or the boundaries so that there is a level of consistency that doesn't feel so up and down. I think right now they win bigger than the team wins bigger than I can imagine sometimes, but sometimes it's the simplest thing that I'm like, I already said that once. Why isn't anybody listening to me? And it's funny because I remember you saying the same things to us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the challenge, I think, is consistency, especially as new people are added to the team. I mean, sometimes I assume people know things that they weren't even exposed to. So that's part of next level for me, is communicating not just the steps to do, but the philosophy that defines the team, so that the steps always lead to that place, right? Like, I think sometimes I focus too much on the process and the steps, and then I get frustrated when a step is missed. But really, if I just set the target and let everyone define their own steps toward that success, as long as we hit the target, I think we're winning.
I've been married for 41 years, and Rhonda and I have certainly created some systems in our lives. But what is much more powerful than the systems, meaning how we make decisions, that'd be one example, because we're both thinkers, but outside of that, we're very different people. But one thing that I hope that Rhonda would always believe about me, and that I hope that she would always, that I would believe about her, is that we would never doubt one another's faithfulness. We'll never doubt one another's faithfulness. Now, I'm saying that because I'm going to say back to you in my own words what I think I heard, and then give you an opportunity to add to it or correct it where you would like to. Peter Drucker, I quote all the time because he's my number one mentor. He's no longer with us, but he still mentors me through his writings. He says, always and forever, the first question we always need to ask is, what needs to be done? And whether you ask yourself that question or not, you've identified what you need to do to get to the next level as a leader. That's essentially what's happening here. you did not say this, but I will share this with you. Resist the temptation to go out more than 18 months. Especially in today's world, things change so quickly. But when you get out, 18 months is far enough to make some good decisions to move you towards north. And it's short enough to where people can usually see it and see what can happen. Chrissy says, by her actions, say what bothers you, speak your insecurities. And that's really, really where risk happens. Not just say it, step into it, step into it, step into it, take the risk. One of the biggest mistakes that Chrissy said that she makes as a leader, and I will get right on the same bandwagon, and I will dare to ask what leader would not put this, at least in their top 3 mistakes, is assuming. That's what we do. And we cannot do that anymore if we want to get to the next level. Now, we will still do it because we unconsciously assume. And so we have to take the subconscious and bring it to the forefront and ask ourselves, am I assuming? Did I communicate? Like Chrissy said, have I not said this before? Have I not said this before? Apparently, we have not said it enough. And so we have to communicate, communicate, communicate. The last thing I want to say, and then give the final thoughts to Chrissy Lefler, is Peter Drucker is also famous in saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast every morning. Now, the reason why we have a strategy, though, and the reason why I want to over communicate is so that the culture, this goes back to my comment about my marriage, that the culture of my marriage is so strong that when a process breaks, there's enough intuitive understanding that gets us over the goal line anyway. What are your thoughts, Chrissy? What would you add to that? What would you correct?
Yeah, no, I mean, no corrections. It leads me to thinking about part of the revelation that I've had in terms of my growth. I mean, on the surface, sometimes I'm amazed that people don't think like me, right? Like I make the assumption that everybody thinks and gets to the same place the same way that I do. Part of getting to the next level for me is truly assessing how open-minded am I? Because I usually walk into every conversation with a desired outcome in mind, right? And usually a pretty good idea of what I think it takes to solve the problem or get to the issue that we're discussing. One of my favorite quotes is from Steve Jobs, and he said something along the lines, paraphrasing, but we don't hire smart people and tell them what to do. We hire smart people and let them tell us what to do. So I find myself constantly evaluating, just because someone on my team is bringing up something different, is it wrong? Not necessarily, right? So I've had to learn to question my own sort of processes and thoughts in terms of how open-minded am I really? And I think the most enjoyable way I've done that to date is just by investing in my team members. I've had to learn to be very present. Part of trying to get out ahead is that I often find myself not being present with my leaders when I need to be. And I think stopping and sort of looking at those moments, I can learn a lot about myself and about them, and probably what the next level looks like for all of us. So that's what I think is probably important for me in the next steps. And it is about culture, and it's also about strategy. So
yeah, you articulated that very well. My experience in working with you is that if I bring you a good idea, and because I know it's a good idea. I mean, leaders know they have good ideas. They get up in the morning, that's just what they do. But if I can come to you with my good idea, with an openness, with a spirit of collaboration, with a learning attitude, you usually make my good idea a better idea. And I think that's what you're saying there, at the end as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And when it comes to strategy, and that would be my final word, is that in our curriculum that we use, it is the third module on leading others. We make a statement, and I believe that statement is credited to Lloyd Lewan, who was a Denver gentleman, a leader. They're retired, but the Lewans are well known in the Denver area for business machines. He was also in charge of semester at sea. If you can imagine that, it's a whole semester with college students going from port to port on one boat. That takes a lot of leadership there. But he says that it's not usually the leader's decision that's wrong. Often leaders make really good decisions, but what makes it a bad decision is not the decision, it's the how and the when they carry it out. And that kind of comes back to both strategy, culture, collaboration together. I've learned from you today. Thank you so much, Chrissy. I appreciate it. And thank you for, giving back. And just, I'd like to have you on again and maybe one of our webinars. There's one coming up soon. In fact, let's just talk about it. One coming up soon. I forget if it's next month or the following month. And I want to interview a panel of women in leadership, and just continue to talk about the topic that we need to talk about. And maybe you'll accept that invitation and join that. Be pretty embarrassing to turn me down right here on air.
Hey, yes, the answer is yes.
Okay. All right, Chrissy, thank you again for joining us. And I'm glad everybody got to meet you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.